who can say we are using cosmic ray to measure water? There are only 3 companies in the world that can say this. Only 3, and we are one of the 3.
You deliberately call Finapp a cosmic ray company, not a water tech company, even though water is what the customer actually buys. So most business leaders would run towards the biggest word, the biggest market, water. You're running away from it. Why is that?
I will not say that we are running away, but in our vision, at least in my vision, I want to be like the king of my small niche instead of being one of the fish in the big ocean, And I'm really, really deeply convinced that every single company have to not, let's say, follow the flow, but have to find its specific niche where you can really do the difference, where we are really unique. And so we are not interested in being like in the big market of water. We are more interested in supplying an added value where we can actually do it. And it comes through the cosmic ray. It is not that was, let's say, a deliberately choice that we did, is that actually it comes first probe and detect, and then we find out that there was a possible market on it. So it basically was the other way around. We were born in the University of Padua, and the name of the company Finapp comes from applied nuclear physics in Italian language, that is fisica nucleare applicata. So basically, the founder of Finapp, they were in the university, and for many reasons, they were developing these innovative sensor. At the beginning, it was not even thought for water; it was thought for homeland security, and the point was to detect the neutrons. And so that was the starting point. Then we realized that there was like room for a business on top of it. And so we really started from what we were able to do and not from, let's say, a market research and what are the need on the market.
Curious, has picking like cosmic ray made it harder to explain what you do? And has that made selling what you do easier or harder?
Pros and cons. Pros, it's a nice hook. Who can say we are using cosmic ray to measure water? There are only 3 companies in the world that can say this. Only 3, and we are one of the 3. And we have something different from the others. So basically something that you never hear. So it's the best hook I can imagine. And it is also fascinating. Cosmic ray is not something that is like in your common life that you use. It's not your mobile phone. It's cosmic ray. So great. Then you have to explain how it works. And so that comes the difficult part. But again, I really prefer to explain why is different, how it works, but then to be unique instead of having something that is already well known, but then I have to explain for 1 hour the small difference between me and my other 10,000 competitors worldwide. So I really prefer this way.
I guess with the way that you're approaching the market then, is it that, you're kind of explaining what you do, it makes it a good hook because then people haven't heard about it before. Do people get interested in that, or do you feel like they switch off a little bit because they feel it's a bit either sci-fi or they don't really understand it and you have to explain it a lot?
No. Well, let's say that during the years, we have refined a lot the way to explain it. So the first time first of all, I am a co-founder, but I'm the only not nuclear physicist among the co-founder. So at the really beginning, this bunch of super nerdy physicists have to explain me how it works. And it took some time for me to understand. And so my first goal was to make it more easy to understand and more straightforward, because for me, like, it took 1 week at the beginning. And the explanation also was really bad, I have to say. And then we work a lot to make it simple, straightforward, and easy to understand. And I think that now it's reasonable clear, it's reasonable understandable. And also we make also a lot of example to explain, It's not just the physics itself, it's also, I don't know, like, okay, you have purchased the best car that you can, that obviously is a Ferrari, as everybody knows, but you are not able to drive it, so I'm selling you the driving course for fast cars, something like this. Or, okay, the difference between us and the point scale probe is like that you want to see what is inside the room, but you are outside of the room and you can check only from the keyhole. And so that's a really partial view of the reality. So we make a lot of examples to explain people, and actually is part of our storytelling, is part of our marketing to make every time to improve this storytelling, to make people, let's say, comfortable about this and not like worried about this, something that they don't understand. I always tell them, do you know how your television works? Do you know how your mobile phone actually works? No, you just switch on. And it's the same for the Finapp Pro. Don't worry. We do the job. You just take the advantages.
Okay, so let's talk about growth for a second. So you and I kind of both know the sector goes in two ways. One is that they don't really believe in growth. They just believe in the mission. So they end up just taking things very slowly. The other half is a bit addicted to the B2B SaaS story where they grow 3, 4, 5x a year for like a software company. You are building a neutron counter. What does the whole SaaS growth myth cost the founders who believe it applies to them?
I have to say that actually we have a sort of middle way between, this myth of growing 3 for 10 times per year, every year for forever, and the slow growth of the classical, let's say, hardware manufacturer that you cannot grow more than, let's say, 10%, 20% every year is already a super good result. We are a middle way between it. First of all, at the beginning, it's sort of easy because the revenue is so low that it's so simple to make it per free. So from 1,000 to 3,000 is not such a big effort, but it's just, I'm a little bit exaggerating, but that's also the reality of the really beginning. And now also we have to deal with the investors that have joined the Finapp journey, So we have collected some good money especially to be in Italy, especially to be in this, let's say, environmental sector, green sectors. And so we have to deal also with the business plan, and we have to deal with the expectation of the investor that put money on top of it. And so let's say that our growth is something that I will say is something sustainable, is not like unbelievable fast. It is something, let's say, balanced between the myth and the expectation and the reality. So we find ourselves, let's say, in a reasonable, comfortable position, but also the expectation that we created on top of our growth were not unbelievable high.
How did you manage to do that then? Because there are so many sustainability hardware companies that get stuck and they almost move from like one funding round to another funding round and don't quite manage to take off. It sounds like you're doing better than that 20 to 30% you just mentioned. Talk me through kind of how you reach that stage.
So first of all, it's not a linear process. There are, I remember a couple of years in which we were basically stuck. We didn't decrease the revenue, but was sort of the same of the previous year. And there are years in which we do maybe per 2, per 3 compared to the previous year. So it's not something linear. We have learned that we don't have to be super excited when we have these good years, and we don't have to be too much stressed and depressed when it's stuck, first of all. And how we did it, I think that the reason, say, a magic recipe, I will say that is a combination of different factors. First of all, I'm really convinced that the fact that we are unique on the market is something that helps. So once your value proposition is understood, basically you don't have so many competitors. And so that helps. The fact that we have a neutron detector behind us also preserve us from the competitors, because when you're doing only software, one day, let's say really quickly, a new company could be better than you, and there is something really, let's say, harder to digest and also hard to fill the gap. In this case, manufacturing a neutron detector is sort of headache, more headache than just software. And I have also to say that we can really see the competitor coming if it will happen in the future, because like 5 years before, you will see the first publication somewhere, And from the first publication to a company who is really your competitor, it takes some time. Actually, at this stage, we don't see in the scientific publication nothing that can really change the game. And so we basically we are sort of comfortable about this. And so it also give us the time to grow. I don't want to say step by step because it's something that with the round of investment, et cetera, is something that have to be quicker than the expectation of the founder to do, let's say, step by step and relaxed. We are not in so easy position, but at the same time, it gives us the time to think about the company, to refine the vision, to refine also based on what you have learned during the process. And so that's how it works, and a lot of hard work. That's for sure. There are no shortcuts.
It's quite interesting because there's a lot of companies in the sector where they create something brand new and really struggle to sell it because they have to almost sell the problem to the market and then sell the way that they solve it and then sell the actual product itself. But in your case, it's quite interesting because you sell a category that already exists with a new way of doing it. And so you don't have to kind of do all that extra selling on top. And I think that's something a lot of people could learn from this, is figuring out what that category is or slotting yourself into a category that already exists. And you just save yourself a lot of that headache.
Not many times in the history you can create a new need, a brand new need. You are Steve Jobs, fine. But how many Steve Jobs you can find? So in real world, for normal people and not for super, I don't know, Maradona or Michael Jordan of the situation, but for normal entrepreneur like me, you better have an unmet need already there. Because if you think that this thing could be cool, but for the future, if this happens, if looking from a prospective point of view, it's likely that you are going to struggle a lot at the beginning of your journey. If there is already there an unmet need, then you have room for your sales. And basically, I think that many times the founder are too much, let's say, fascinating by the tech, by the improvement, and they don't consider that much the client, the market. So the technology is cool. I mean, we are creating a neutron counter, so I cannot talk badly about the technology, obviously. But on the same time, if it's the final goal of your company, you're going to struggle a lot. If it's just a way to serve something, to basically relieve a need, then you are on the good.
So you said earlier that shortcuts don't exist. We also spoke before this podcast about a partnership that you were going to have that broke your heart. Can you walk me through a little bit about that and what you actually believed would happen versus what did happen?
Yeah. So just to give a little bit of framework, the need that is already there is the need for better usage of water in agriculture, for instance. Or the other need is basically to be more resilient against the climate change. Is clearly already there, is clearly already changed a lot. So we are doing some early warning system for landslide, flood, and wildfire. The need is already there. Scarcity of water, it calls for better irrigation strategy. A lot of, let's say, bad events about environmental monitoring, let's say, is already there. So the market is already there. Okay. Then about this partnership that we mentioned previously, and basically we are trying to find a way to scale quickly. That's the point, because we know that the solution is unique on the market. We know that we have big advantages. We know that the need is already there. We know that already a lot of money are invested for answering this question. And so basically the main problem of Finapp is the go-to-market strategy. And so the question is always the same: how to scale, how to do it quickly. So we can hire 20,000 salespeople to knock every door in the world. Not the best way. We can try to find some agreements, to find some partnership with a company that are already well known in that specific market. Cool idea. Then many times you don't find the right match. Like for instance, in agriculture, there are so many companies who are selling some services to the farmer that are already well known in the market, but maybe the price of our probe is 10 times higher than the subscription that they sell to their clients. So there is no match. So once we have found the right match, and it took some time to find it, it's not something that you buy on the grocery down the street. Then the expectations sometimes are not what actually happened in the real life. I will say that in one specific case, we have a great expectation. We also have a great use cases that at the really beginning it worked really, really well. And we were so confident that we're a good way to scale. And basically nothing happened. And what actually happened is difficult to say because I only see, you say, one side of the moon. I don't see the whole moon. But I will say that we learned this. When you have to deal with dealers, resellers, many times they sell what they have most margin on top of it. Is not the best solution, is the solution that for the reseller create the most margin. And basically they just don't care. I already have a well-known market. I already have my portfolio product. For ABC, I have a great margin on top of it because I don't know, I have a 20 years relationship with the manufacturer of this product or solution, whatever it is. I have already sold 1,000 of these. I have a great discount on top of it, rebate on top of it. Okay, the Finapp solution maybe is super cool, maybe is better than competitors, but I have to explain to the final user, I don't have so much margin on top of it. You know what? I go with the already known way, and sorry for Finapp. That's what I think that actually happened in real life.
I was going to say, in hindsight, looking back on it, was there a signal you missed early, or was it genuinely kind of unreadable at the time?
Okay, so I have another story about a reseller. So we have two. In one case, we are now successful. And in one case, as I mentioned, we are not successful at all. I will say that there were a lot of signal of something that was going bad in the successful case. So we were somehow, let's say, warned that something could go wrong, and we try our best to fix the situation. And we put our effort. Let's say that maybe we were, like, say, close to go fail also in this case, but we were able to rebuild the relationship, to find out the weakness point. Also, this reseller was, let's say, honest with us, telling that they were actually not able to sell this because we are not in their comfort zone. It was something that they were not used to sell. It was selling technology and not selling hardware, you know? And so basically understood this, we created much more marketing materials. We physically went worldwide to explain how to do it, how to sell it, how to answer to the most common questions that arise from the possible client, etc., etc. In the other case, to be honest, I didn't see so many warning coming to our way, especially because at the really, really beginning, the relationship started because we have a possible use case, and that use case then was successful. We were able to win the tender together, and I really thought that that use case can really open the door, you know, for many other. And then nothing happened. That's the explanation. The explanation that I already said is my explanation for this. And to be honest, I didn't see so many warning coming. The only thing that I can say that was also a change in the management of this company, so that the people that we started talking with actually go to other company, or maybe they just quit and went to a completely different market. Sometimes they went to other competitors, so we have to create the relationship again, and it didn't work.
I want to move on to the storytelling, positioning side of things quickly. So you said something before where, so you mentioned like you work with agriculture, you work with fighting climate change, you work with aqueducts, completely different verticals, agriculture, aqueducts, that kind of thing.
Painful.
So the storytelling has to be completely different too for each of them. And I think that's something a lot of sustainability struggles with. You got one company, one value proposition, but the buyer in each vertical hears like a different story.
Yep.
How have you handled that so far?
Yeah, we work on top of it, and we started with agriculture, and then it comes out that this kind of probe could be useful also for something else. You know, at the really beginning of the story, we thought that this neutron counter was the perfect solution for best irrigation strategy. So also the marketing followed this, let's say, assumption, this starting assumption, and then step by step we learn something new. So the storytelling is basically like this. We try to find the best balance between the value proposition of the company, so who we are, why we are different, why we are unique. And this is something that we want to emphasize. And from the other side, we have to answer the need for our client. So we have to find the right balance and combination to show them, look, you will not find the same thing in another company. These specific things is only in Finapp. And on the other side, what is your need? So we work on the need of the client to find out the right storytelling. So at the really beginning, it was, please, I want you to test this to have the validation of our value proposition. I know that is true because there is a lot of scientific paper, etc., but I have to validate it in real life with real client. So please give me the possibility to validate my value proposition. Okay. And so we try to go to accelerator to win a sustainability project, something like this, in which the final client didn't spend money. They were just basically the hoster of the solution that was paid by someone else. So that was our first storytelling. Thanks God it worked. And so we switched to, okay, we already validated this. You want to try, you want to see in your field with your crop, with your climate, okay? Because we cannot do the validation worldwide in a second. You have to test it, okay? So there was something like, okay, the first year you will have a rebate. We can try to find out the best way to do it. Instead of selling the hardware, we can rent the hardware. So the money that you will spend the first year is not that much. If you're not satisfied, you will just not renew the renting of the hardware, and that's it. And step by step, we grow with the trust of our client. And so we were able to have some figures about how much more the crop yield was, how less water you used. And so we changed the storytelling again. And we say, look, with this value proposition of Finapp, you will grow 20% more crop using 20% less water. Just giving you an example. So it go from, let's say, from technology at the end to return of the investment. So if you purchase our probe, let's say in way less than 1 year, you will have your return on the investment. Already in the first year of deploying, you will gain money. And so we switch like this. And then it comes the environmental monitoring. So at the beginning, it was, I don't know, you meteorology agency of country X, you have already spent a lot of money for measuring the snow depth. You have already spent a lot of money for having the soil moisture sensor. What about to do this in a new way with these more, let's say, advantages, with these pros without the cons of the current solution? So they started to say yes, maybe they purchase one for testing. And once we have a quite large number of clients that purchase only one with a little bit of rebate in exchange of sharing the data, maybe. One point that I want to mention that we don't own the data. Is the final user, the client that owns the data. And so having the permission to use their data for some paper, for some publication, we gave in exchange a rebate. And so also the client was more like in the mood to purchase because it was also mentioned in scientific publication to increase their, let's say, their rank, you know. And in this way, we were able to build a little bit of a network, even if the client were different, maybe with only one probe installed. And once we have it, we use this reference to convince new people. Look, the meteorological agency of this country have it. Why you don't? They are so well recognized for being really advanced in technology. You don't want to have this as well. And this reference in this scientific world with university or with meteorological agency, it really worked. It's more about the reference than the technology itself. And at the beginning, we create the trust with this sharing of the data and with this publication. So we take the effort to do some papers, to go to some events, to have the poster session, everything on our shoulder, but then it created the trust. So it was really useful.
Is there a version of the value proposition that works across all verticals, or have you kind of accepted that it has to fragment? But it sounds like you know that it has to fragment now because you speak to different buyers, you say different things.
Actually, it's fragmented. The only thing that is unique is that we use cosmic ray to measure water. So the entry point is the same, and then the storytelling, the value proposition is completely different, and also is different in the different stage of the company. At the beginning, it was my way to measure soil moisture is better than the competitors, the other technology. Now is return on the investment. So it also changed during the time.
That's an interesting point. So lots of sustainability companies tend to sell based on their technology or on the mission, whatever it might be, the whole Simon Sinek thing of start with why. What I have found is that the climate sustainability companies that are growing quickest are those ones that are talking in business outcomes, ROI, cost savings, extra profit, things like that. So that's quite interesting to hear that you've landed that same way.
Yeah. So at the beginning, you don't have this number, you don't know it. And so at the really beginning, you have to sell the technology, but then you have to switch from the technology to the benefit of your client. The point have to be the benefit. Otherwise, no way.
It's quite interesting. People talk a lot about product market fit, but that almost sounds like you need product benefit fit first before you can kind of start speaking about it. Because if you don't know what the ROI is, you can't start speaking about that yet. That's an interesting one. I want to move on to salespeople quickly. So selling a product like this needs salespeople. And obviously you mentioned before you chose either 10,000 people selling door to door or the partnership side of things. But even so, you still need someone to sell the actual thing, right?
Absolutely.
And with something like this, it needs both deep technical knowledge and the sales skill sets for like the leverage to be able to close these big multi-stakeholder cycles. It's not like a quick SaaS product where you sell a $100 a month product with a one cool thing. It's like these are long relationships.
Yes.
When you hire a salesperson into a company like yours, what tends to break first? Is it the technical understanding or the commercial instinct side of things?
I have created several versions of Excel file to do the evaluation of the people that make the interview for us. What I did, I was really lucky that one of the first employee in Finapp is a she. She is really, really committed. She's really, really focused, well organized, hard worker, and she was able to sell quite a lot. And so basically, once that we have this successful use case, and we were lucky because at the really beginning, when we hired her, we didn't knew it. It was like the first 2 months of the company. So we have nothing, it was just, I know her, she's good, fine. That was enough to be hired, at that time. And so I asked myself, what are the characteristics that makes this person good in selling? And so I want to hire people that was sort of copy paste of this person. After a while, I realized that I was wrong because every single person have its own key to open the door of the possible client. And so everybody has a different approach. And it is not true that there is only one approach that works. What we are looking for is a person that have to be curious. What we are looking for is a person that shows that is committed and a person that is, say, on a systematic job. In this kind of job, people focused wins against people that are genius. A genius here basically can give up because the time to market is pretty long. It's 6 months, it's 1 year, it's 2 years sometimes. And so the genius can basically catch you, but then if you don't step by step, week by week, month by month, if you don't follow the process, if you're not really focused and patient, you will not go through it. And so I'm not looking for people that understand the Finapp probe at the first take. I looking for people who shows me this characteristic of being curious and being determined to sell. That's it. That's the two main characteristics that I'm looking for. Then we did also some, role play, obviously, to see how they behave. Before the interview, we give them only a part of the sales book, only a part, otherwise it's too much, it's headache, And based on these few pages, we ask some question to understand what they learn. And the most important thing is not what they learn, but how they behave when I show them that they have something wrong. Because for sure they say something wrong. It's impossible to be perfect with something that you don't know and that is also complicated. So the real thing that we notice is how they react to the problem that we show. If they are, let's say, collaborative, if they want to make working in team to find a solution, or if they basically go in, let's say, an individual way to solve the problem. That's what we are looking for, actually. And then one thing, you have to train them a lot, because you cannot expect from people to have the knowledge by itself. Is way impossible. You have to train them. You have to be patient. And we learn how to learn them. It is a two-way process. At the beginning, I thought that telling ABC was necessary. Then I realized that was not the case. Maybe another strategy was better. And again, every single salesperson have a different key to be open-minded, to be learned. And me, as being the manager, is my role to find the best way to open the mind of my sales team, of each single salesperson, because every person is made in a different way. So it's more like a psychological job, not only sales and tech, but also psychological.
What's the most expensive thing you believed early on that turned out to be wrong?
It's a super difficult question. I will say that the most expensive thing that went wrong in our history was hiring the wrong person. I think that at the end of the day, hiring the right team is the most difficult things in a company. And hiring the wrong people, it really costs you a lot of money, because it takes time to realize. And then maybe you try your best to fix the situation, and only in the worst case, you are not able to fix it. And especially in Italy, believe me, it's unbelievable expensive. Not only from a money point of view, but also because for the law in Italy, it's super complicated to fire people. And so you have to be really aware when you are going to hire people. And in our history, we made some big mistake in hiring people. But that day, my crystal ball was in maintenance. And so we were not able to see in the future.
Angelo, my final question for you. There is a brilliant scientist founder listening right now. They've got great hardware. They're climbing the TRLs. They're convinced the technology will speak for itself and the market will catch up.
Yeah.
You're 20 years and 2 companies in. What is one thing you tell them they are wrong about?
The technology doesn't speak itself. They are completely wrong if they think this. The technology have to be only a way to give relief to some painful point in your client. That's the point. So, okay, this improvement in the technology can be better for answering a question, to answering a need that is already there. Then technology is cool. Otherwise, is something that is empty. It's just technology for itself. And what is actually the value behind this? So the point is always that your value proposition. Your value proposition have to be based on the need of the market that are not currently really fixed. That is still a painful point. Then the technology is just the medium to fix it. Otherwise, no way. That's what we have learned in Finapp is since 7 years now. But also before I have another company in meteorology, B2B meteorology. So it's still in this, let's say, environmental or green somehow sector. And I was convinced like 20 years ago that having 2 kilometers grid modeling for weather forecast instead of 100 kilometers speaks itself. That I have a long queue of clients that they really want to have these 2 per 2 kilometers weather forecast. Actually, they don't care about the resolution of the model. They care about their specific need. That's it. And believe me, from 100 kilometers grid to 2 kilometers grid is sort of revolution, is completely a different world, but it doesn't sell by itself. You have still to sell it. And the only way to sell it is to listen carefully to your client and understand their need. Many times they don't know their need. That's something that have to be clearly told. Only by talking with your client, talking with your prospect, that at that time they are not client, you can understand maybe better than them what is their need, because not always the need is so clear. There are really, let's say, smart guy who perfectly understand their business and they perfectly understand their need. Many other times they don't understand perfectly their own business. And so the most time you spend in talking with them and maybe put yourself in their shoes, and then you can learn something that even they don't know. And so the need is not always so clear. That is also part of the story.
Angelo, thank you very much for today. You've been extremely giving, honest. I think a lot of people get a lot out of this episode. Do you have anything kind of you want to plug? What is the Finapp Tech website? Should they follow you on LinkedIn?
Yeah, we have our website. It is finapptech.com. And you can also follow us mainly on LinkedIn, I will say. Our page is Finapp, and you can find us there. And that's it. I hope that it was useful. And it was a great pleasure to join you, Chris. Thanks a lot for having me today. And I want to say good luck to all the entrepreneurs that are outside there.